Hello everybody and welcome back to Robert's Reviews. Today is the first day out of 8 of movies that I appreciate. And that rhymed and I'm very happy with myself. So again, the way this is going to work is I'm going to be reviewing 8 movies that I really enjoy and that have, basically shaped my childhood and my early young adulthood and stuff like that. And just movies that I really enjoy that I want to review. And I'm reviewing that until Thanksgiving. And this is the first one, and I'm not telling anybody what the 8 are, except for this one so far, which is Bridge to Terabithia. Bridge to Terabithia was made in 2007. It was directed by Gabor Sipo, and it was written by Jeff Starkwell and David Peterson. The idea of this film is phenomenal, and it came from a book, and the book was written for her son because her son had a best friend who got struck by lightning and died. So that makes this already crazy, but what a wonderful, wonderful book, and what a wonderful movie. I've read the book a few times, and I grew up watching this movie a lot. I loved this movie. I was really entranced by this movie, and I will talk about why in a little bit. There are spoilers in this video, I'm very sorry. Chances are you would have seen this movie by now already because it came out in 2007, so I don't feel bad if you are spoiled. I think that's fair logic. Essentially what happens in this movie is Jess, who is a young boy who doesn't really fit in his school because he's an artist, and artists are always looked down upon apparently. Basically this new girl named Leslie moves into town right next door, and they become best friends. And she basically teaches him to reach the full potential of his imagination. And they go into the forest every day after school, and they let their imagination go wild. And they use the imagination and the things that... I'm going to push this down more. And the imagination that they see... That looks way better. Basically help solve their world problems. Because they're bullied all the time, so they go to their special place, and they imagine what it would be like if... the different scenarios and how they can... solve their problems, and then they take those and they apply them in their real life when they go to school. Which doesn't sound very good. It sounds kind of cheesy, but it's not, I promise. It really is a wonderful movie. And then, spoiler, Leslie dies because he goes with his teacher. Jess goes with his teacher to a museum, and she goes into the wild by herself, and the rope swing that they use to get over the river snaps, and she hits her head. And then basically Jess comes home and he has to figure out, how does he move on? He was just friends with this girl for almost a year and she's gone now. I mean, that would be awful. If one of my friends died, I would probably kill myself. That's not literally what I would do. But I would be horrified. I mean, that's awful. I can't imagine what it's like going through that. But this movie really helps. It puts things into perspective where he's like, listen, I can either forget that she ever existed, I can help keep her alive, or I can kill myself. And he goes through these 3 stages, and the characters in this show help him realize that, the obvious thing that he should do is try to keep her alive in his memory and his imagination, and so he opens Terabithia to his sister and allows her to enter his life more, which is really just beautiful. It really is beautiful. Some quick little things. This is a Disney film, and Disney films typically are not allowed to show permanent deaths. This is the first film that Disney ever made that showed a permanent death of... It's a feature film. So it's the first feature film, live action, that showed the permanent death of an actual human being character. And that shocked me when I was younger, too, because when you're younger, all the movies that you're allowed to watch are designed to have a happy ending where nobody dies and everything is safe. And so when you get older and you're a teenager and you're watching these things, or at least when I grew up, I mean, now you can just watch people shoot people point blank in the face when you're 5 years old. It's ridiculous. Sorry, a little brief rant. But when I was I don't know, maybe, it came out in 2007, I probably watched it in 2008 or 9. I was 8 or 9 when it came out, when I watched it. And it really was interesting because I never really experienced a death. And this felt like a real death because we knew Leslie for the period of the film, only about an hour because it's only an hour and a half long, which is, I commend you, the movie makers, for making a movie of a reasonable length that I can watch. Oh my god, I wish every movie was an hour and a half. They're not. So this really put things into perspective for me. Like, what would I do if I lost a friend? And I mean, this really shows it. He's depressed. He goes through all 5 stages of grief. He forgets, and he tries to move on, is in denial, and then acceptance at the end when he allows his sister into the world. And really, it's just beautiful. I'll get into a little bit more about that after I talk about the characters and the actors. Josh Hutcherson plays Jess. I love Josh Hutcherson when he's younger. I don't particularly care for him in movies like The Hunger Games. It's not interesting to me. I just don't like The Hunger Games in general. I like the first movie and the first book. The rest of them are just pointless to me. Particularly Mockingjay. Mockingjay was all over the place. But Josh Hutcherson was a perfect child actor. I mean, he looked awkward, his head was bigger than his body, and he just seemed like an outcast. And really, it was perfect. And he's an artist. The character is an artist. Although I guess Hutcherson is also an artist, but whatever. And his character really goes through a lot because, he has no friends, he's an artist, he gets bullied, he finds a friend, and then he goes into just the forest. It's literally basically just a backyard forest. And every child has a place where they go where they let their imagination run wild, and it's really, really beautiful. And this is his place for him, is the backyard where it's just covered in trees and forests and rivers, and they imagine a lot of things. They build a tree house in there with Leslie, and it really is just quite beautiful. Anna Sophia Robb, and I'm saying that correctly, as Leslie. Leslie is a beautiful character as well, simply because she's so free-spirited and free-minded, and she allows Jess to open his eyes and see what he wants to see. Not everything has to be reality. If you keep your mind in reality for too long, you're going to die, okay? That's why we have movies. That's why we have TV. That's why we have books. It's not there necessarily just for the purpose of education. It's there because you can allow your brain to escape. I mean, imagine literally just going to work every day and doing nothing else. I've done that before. It's awful. Why would you ever want to do that? If I didn't have movies and television, I'd be all over the place. I watch TV every day. I watch a movie every day. A lot of it has to do with this YouTube channel now, which is helpful because now it's aimed and it's more streamlined. But the idea behind, letting your imagination go and letting yourself go is just so beautiful because we don't have to be stuck in a world with our problems. We can go elsewhere. We can pretend that we're somewhere else just for an hour or two and really let our brain relax and then come back to it later, come back and be like, okay, how do I solve this problem? And that's exactly what they do in this book and in the movie. They go into the backyard, basically into the trees. They pretend they're in a fortress and they're like, okay, these vultures they represent our bullies. This giant troll represents the specific bully who's very mean to us, who's also kind of nice to other people. And it really shows that, if you imagine your situation from a different perspective and you think about what would I do if this person were, say, a vulture? And then you think about, okay, well, I would try to lure it away. And that's what they do in the book, in the movie. And then they take that and they bring it and they apply it to real life. And this is the kind of thing that we should be teaching our children in schools, okay? Because, for one, bullying is never going to stop. I'm sorry if anyone hates hearing that. It's just not going to stop. Okay, nothing that we can do can make bullying stop. It's just not going to happen. Okay, it's not. And I've put a lot of thought into this, particularly when I was younger. I was never fully bullied or anything like that. I never fit in anywhere, but I was never bullied, mainly because I didn't really care. I'm sure I probably was intently bullied, but I don't think I saw it that way, so it doesn't really matter. But there are millions of people that are bullied every day, and this is something that we can teach them. We don't have to teach the bullies to not teach. That'd be very helpful, but nothing's getting through them, okay? Because most of the bullies are raised by their parents, and a lot of the parents are awful people, and that is why they're bullies, most of the time. And there's nothing we can physically really do about that. We can say, hey, that's wrong. You shouldn't do that. We can try to teach them morals. We can try to do all that stuff. But really, it's not going to work. Nothing we can physically do is going to stop bullying from happening all around the world all the time. But we can have resources and share resources and teach kids how to I don't want to teach them how to deal with it per se, but give them resources and abilities to take the situation, find something positive, and learn how to get out of the bullying situation. Because The bullies aren't going to actively stop bullying because they enjoy bullying. But the people that are being bullied want to not be bullied, obviously, and they're going to take any step that they can. The goal is to give them resources and abilities that they can do and use to get out of a situation of bullying or find something positive and learn to ignore them and learn that what they're saying is just not true before it gets to the point where they're going to act back and then become a bully. Which this movie shows very well. This movie literally is like, okay, if you look at your problem from a different perspective, you can, obviously you're not going to agree with this person, but maybe, just maybe, there's something wrong with the family. Maybe one of the bullies, and this is an exact replica of what's happening in the movie at this point, there's somebody who bullies them, and they think that, oh, well, she's just an awful person. So they bully her back, and obviously she gets very upset, and she's crying in the bathroom, and one of the main characters goes in and is like, hey, what's wrong? And she's talking about how her father beats her and, like, you know, is very mean to her. And you feel bad for her. She's bullying because that's all she knows. And there's not much we can really do to stop that. Besides saying, hey, that's really wrong. We understand that it's happening to you, but it's wrong. You got to stop doing that. And most of the time, they're not going to change. Sometimes they will, and that's great. It's a beautiful story. But most of the time, they're not going to change. That is my brief educational lecture. Feel free to argue in the comments, because I'm sure there are a lot of people who disagree with me, but that's okay. You're allowed to disagree with me. It's an opinion. So that's the movie. It ends melancholy, kind of, because you're sad because Leslie died, but you're happy because Jess is moving on finally. It really is. This movie alone spawned all of those thoughts. Even when I was like at a young age of like maybe 15, I spent a lot of time thinking about this movie and its impact on what our reality is and how we can help fix that for everyone. And adults should watch this movie and see if they can get the same ideas out of it. I'm sure younger people and older people are going to get different ideas out of this film. And that's just so beautiful because it really is a piece of art. And that is why it is in my top 8. I'm going to give this movie an A, and here's why. There's one weird-ass side plot that was so weird, where Josh Hutcherson's character, Jess, like, has this weird crush on his music teacher, and then goes on a field trip with her on a Saturday. And that's why Leslie dies, pretty much. I mean, it's not really his fault, but it kind of is his fault. Whatever. And that's just so weird to me, and it happens throughout the whole film. The only reason they had that crush thing happen is because that way he would have a reason to want to go to the museum. They could have found any other way to do that. They chose that, and I was like, okay, that's a little weird. That's not weird at all, you know? That's why it's not an A+. But it's an A because it is a phenomenal movie. The acting is amazing, and the overall underlying morals are just quite beautiful. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned the entire week. I'll be releasing more of these videos of movies that I really care about. Likely they're going to be about 15 minutes long each because I'm going to be talking about the reflection that I have about each individual movie. And maybe I won't. Depends on the movie. I mean, there's one movie in particular I'm not going to talk a lot long about because there's not much depth to it. It's just really funny. But yeah, thank you for watching. Subscribe. Like the video. Go to the Facebook group. Join yourself in that group. You're immediately accepted every time you're in. And I hope you enjoy watching my videos, and as always, keep watching videos and movies, and keep yourself educated, and I'll see you guys in the next video.